Hi, I'm Kate. This is my channel, and this is a currently reading video. So talking about my last week of reading and what's coming up next for me. So I'm over the weekend I finished a short novel and an audiobook. And I've started an audiobook, I've started a novel, and I'm continuing with a non-fiction. So I finished Pretty Face by Lucy Parker, which is a romance novel set in the theatre world in London, and it's which was book 2 of a series. I think it's a 5-book series. I really liked it. It was really sweet, funny, and a bit of grief and age gap romance. Although there was like the guy is her boss, so it's a bit. Yeah, but they handled it really nicely, and so I've also just started the next book in that series. So book 3 is called Making Up. I've only just started that this morning, so we'll see how that goes. I also finished, excuse me, this short novel called Fly Away by Kathleen Jennings. It's really very pretty. Kathleen Jennings is actually an artist who also writes. So she's created this, and then there's these beautiful front and end flaps that she's also done. That are just beautiful. And then throughout, like the beginning of chapters, there's more of those. So this is actually set in rural Australia, and it's it's taking lots of like folklore stories from around the world, I think. Like there's a sort of a take on the Pied Piper, and I think there might be a few others from different parts of the world. And they sort of put them all in this one town in a really creepy and unsettling way. It took me a little while to get into it. The first maybe 40 pages, which, considering it's not a very long book, is a decent chunk. I wasn't quite sure what the story was or where it was going or who the characters were. I wasn't really keen on the style, but then once I sort of figured out what was going, I trucked along quite well. I think I read it in an afternoon. It was quite creepy, but I really liked the overall vibe of it. There was something about it that felt very real and very true to my experience of rural Australia, but also something strange, a capital S, strange, weird with a capital W. Just, there was something not right, and that was really cool, and I really enjoyed it. So I also continued on with Sapiens. I'm a decent chunk of the way through, not quite halfway, but nearly there. I'm going to try and keep reading some of that. I didn't read as much of it this weekend as I wanted to. I watched some TV instead, and I had some daytime naps, which were really quite lovely. But it's very readable. I'm finding it's really easy to just kind of get into a rhythm of it. It's almost chatty in sections, which I'm really enjoying. This kind of thing could be quite heavy, but instead it's very readable, and I'm finding myself that when I get going with it, it moves along at quite a clip. The other thing that I've started is a horror novel, which is very unusual for me, particularly because I just finished Fly Away, which was creepy rather than horrific, but this is just horror. This is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. So this is about, this is a Native American novel. I believe Stephen Graham Jones is American Indian man. American Indian, Native American. I really should know what the correct terminology for that is. And it's about a hunting trip where a group of young men slaughter a whole herd of elk. And then this is several years after that hunting trip and the ramifications of that hunting trip. And there's one of the elk is haunting them. There was this really graphic scene where one of the men has been so twisted and turned around. He thinks maybe his wife is the elk or the elk woman, because he sometimes sees this woman, she's got a woman's body but an elk head, and he sometimes sees her. And then he thinks that maybe his wife is the elk woman and is possessed, or maybe she's always been her and she's out to get him. And then he only knows there's one other Indian woman because he's moved away from the reservation. And he thinks maybe she's the elk woman, and he basically just brutally murders them, convinced that they're trying to kill him as the elk woman. So I've just finished that, and I think maybe it's going to jump around between the different men who are on that hunting trip and sort of see their experience of the haunting. So the very first little section was one man, but it was only very short, little, maybe 15, 20 pages. And then the rest of the book so far has been about that guy, but he's just been arrested for their murder. Arrested, or was he shot? I think he was shot dead by police during his arrest. And so then I think the rest of it might be about the other men on that trip. I haven't quite got there yet. It's the writing style, I can only describe it as very masculine. It's not at all what I'm used to, and it took quite a while to be like, I just need to read it. But I sort of got into the rhythm of it. And I think it being horror and it being very masculine in tone sort of makes it really not my kind of book. But I've seen other reviews, heard other reviews of it that have been really positive, and I always want to be branching out with my reading, so I don't often read books by men, actually. I don't know how many books I've read by Native Americans in the past, and I don't often read horror. So I feel like this is something that I want to push through with, and I read that much in a day, in a morning, really, a mid-afternoon. So I could quite easily finish this over the course of the week, and then I can say that I've read it, and if I didn't like it, then I don't have to read anything by him again, and if I do like it, well, then I've got a new author. So that's what I have been reading. So I'm still on the go. I've got Sapiens, I've got The Only Good Indians, and I've got Making Up as a non-fiction, a novel, and an audiobook. So that's what I've got going at the moment, and I'm really wanting to get through. I've blown away my reading goal for the year. I've well surpassed it. I just want to push through to the last few weeks of the year and see how much I can actually get read. So I'm Kate, this is my channel, and thank you.